Welcome to Group 2's Learning Task 3 project on case study research. You may be wondering, what exactly is case study research? Well, allow me to give you a brief overview. Please see the table of contents on slide 2 for a full listing of each of the components of this project. Now, without further ado, case studies. So what is a case study? Please read the following 2 slides. Case studies are used in various disciplines. They are difficult to define, but it is essentially an in-depth, small sample study in real-world context. They can be qualitative or quantitative, depending on the data gathered. We have outlined 6 main theoretical assumptions of case studies in order to ease your understanding of this seemingly complex framework. Number 1. Case study, as in most qualitative research methods, follows the belief that research is carried out to showcase the viewpoint and perspective of the participants. It illuminates the phenomenon being observed and helps add a knowledge base and practice in education. Number 2. Through focusing on a particular case study research aims to discover the interaction of significant factors characteristic of the phenomenon. Number 3. Case study research is particularistic, descriptive, and heuristic. It is focused on a single case and what it might explain about the phenomenon. The description is usually in-depth and explanatory, and at the end, it provides a clear picture to the readers of the phenomenon. Number 4. The case must be bounded, i.e., it must have defined boundaries so that all interactions at play can be studied and conclusions drawn. This is based on a strong constructivist belief that the world is not static and is based on interactions between an individual and his surrounding. Number 5. It resonates with people's experiences as they compare and contrast the study to their life experiences. And number 6. Working with groups gives researchers a chance to observe the effects of the treatment over different individuals, and this makes results easier to generalize. There are also a few different types of case studies. Case studies can take various forms, including exploratory, where a researcher puts his or her feelers to find initial research in a given field before refining and settling on a particular research topic or question. Next, descriptive design attempts to show in detail what happened in a particular case. Similarly, explanatory design works to explain the details of a particular case. Finally, case study designs can be used in evaluations of a particular study or set of studies. There are several approaches to data collection and analysis in case studies. As suggested by Breiman, case study is not a method but rather a design. A case study involves an in-depth, focused understanding of a phenomenon. It can include quantitative and qualitative methods of data collection and analysis. Also, in 1984, Robert Yin outlines 5 components of research design that are important. A study's questions, who and why questions, its propositions, if any, its units of analysis, the logic linking the data to the propositions, and the criteria for interpreting the findings. A misconception about case study is that it involves looking at only one case. In actuality, it can take many different forms. In 1984, Yin outlines that case studies can also be exploratory, descriptive, or explanatory. Yin identifies the different units of analysis as holistic and multiple cases. Holistic case studies are a single case and an in-depth understanding of only one case, whereas holistic case studies embedded one case with multiple cases embedded within the one case. For example, 2 departments within the same organization. Multiple case studies, two or more. An advantage to multiple case studies is that the investigator can make use of replication logic as stated by Yin. Replication logic is the attempt to reproduce the findings in the first case in the second and third cases. This can give more credibility and validity to the case findings. It also allows the investigator to look for similarities and differences between the cases, which can sometimes lead to a revision of the initial proposition. Disadvantage to multiple case studies could be that you lose the attention to detail, the depth that one has when looking at only one case. And multiple case studies embedded. Here's an example. Study of evaluation in university departments. Studied several universities and within each university examined the practices of several departments. According to Yin, case studies may be based on 6 different sources of evidence: documentation, archival records, interviews, direct observation, participant observation, and physical artifacts. There are various types of documentation in case study research, such as letters, agendas, administrative documents, formal studies or evaluations, and news clippings and other articles in the mass media. Researchers should keep in mind that documents found and used should not be taken as literal documents and should always be questioned for validity. Yin further states, "It is important in reviewing any document to understand that it was written for some specific purpose and some specific audience other than those of the case study being done. In this sense, the case study investigator is a vicarious observer, and the documentary evidence reflects a communication among other parties attempting to achieve some other objectives." Documents can be used to check spellings of names, corroborate other information, or make inferences based on the documentation. It is important in reviewing any document to understand that it was written for some specific purpose and some specific audience other than those of the case study being done. In this sense, the case study investigator is a vicarious observer, and the documentary evidence reflects a communication among other parties attempting to achieve some other objectives. Archival records. Some examples: service records, organizational records, maps and charts, lists of names, survey data, or personal records. Interviews. There's a few different types. Open-ended, looking for facts and opinions. These types of interviewees take the role of informants, giving their own insights into the phenomenon. Or a focus interview, following set questions. These interviews can be used to corroborate facts. When corroborating facts, the questions must be worded in such a way to make the investigator seem naive and less knowledgeable about the topic, so that the interviewee will be more willing to share their knowledge. Or a formal survey. Direct observation. Again, a couple different types here. Formal, where the investigator is asked to measure incidents of certain behavior, or less formal. Observations while other evidence being collected. For example, the investigator may note the physical conditions of the location visited while performing interviews. These observations could also provide information about the phenomenon. If the researchers can provide more than a single observer, these additional pairs of eyes will increase the reliability of the observations being made. Participant observation. In this type, the investigator participates in the events being studied. This method of data collection is often used in anthropological studies of cultures and subcultural groups. The investigator joins the group and lives as part of the group in an effort to understand the group from the inside. There are a few benefits and problems with this type of research. Benefits are, being in their shoes, the investigator can observe from the viewpoint of a participant. And also the investigator can manipulate events, providing a variety of situations to experience. However, one of the main problems is bias. Also, the investigator risks becoming a supporter of the group. This can limit the investigator's ability to examine data more objectively. And finally, too much focus can be needed in participating. This can take away from the investigator's ability to observe, as they will be too busy participating. Some examples of physical artifacts are diaries or journals, technological devices, works of art, or tools or instruments. The three principles of data collection that we looked at are using multiple sources of evidence, creating a case study database, or maintaining a chain of evidence. Yin again suggests the use of three principles of data collection is used in order to maximize the benefits of the sources of evidence and data. Principle 1. Using multiple sources of evidence. The use of multiple sources of evidence in case studies allows an investigator to address a broader range of historical, attitudinal, and observational issues. It allows for converging lines of inquiry and a triangulation of findings. It provides validity and perceived validity, as cases that use multiple findings are often rated as more valid. It gives the investigator more confidence in his or her findings and increases the possibility of hypothesis developing and generalization. The investigator must be skilled in multiple approaches to data collection. A case study investigator may have to collect and analyze documentary evidence like a historian, to retrieve and analyze archival records like an economist or operations researcher, and to design and conduct surveys like a survey researcher. Principle 2. Creating a case study database. Every case study project should strive to develop a formal, retrievable database so that in principle other investigators can review the evidence directly and not be limited to the written reports. The database increases the validity of the case study because it allows others the opportunity to analyze the data and hopefully come to the same conclusions. The data should be present in the report on the findings, which should also be organized and open for others to examine. Yin suggests organizing data in 4 components: notes, documents, tabular materials, and narratives. Notes must be organized so that the researcher and others may retrieve and examine them at a later date. They don't need to be rewritten and edited. Case study documents are organized through an annotated bibliography. You would try to make them readily retrievable. Tabular materials, survey results, and quantitative data. Narratives. In narratives, investigators should compose open-ended answers to the questions in the case study protocol. The main purpose of the open-ended answer is to document the connection between specific pieces of evidence and various issues in the case study, using footnotes and citations generously. Principle 3. Maintaining a chain of evidence. A chain of evidence allows an external observer to follow the derivation of any evidence from initial research questions to ultimate case study conclusions. They should be able to follow the evidence from start to finish, but also from finish to start. The audience should be able to follow the chain of evidence from the initial proposition to the final conclusion, but they should also be able to follow the evidence backward from the conclusion to the proposition. Analyzing case study evidence. Many case study researchers have difficulty knowing how to analyze the data that is collected. Some recommended making all data into quantitative data that can be analyzed statistically. Others recommend organizing data with analytic techniques, such as by using flowcharts, making a matrix of categories, tabulating the frequency of events, or putting information in chronological order. Yin suggests having one of 2 general analytic strategies: relying on theoretical propositions, or developing a case description. Relying on theoretical propositions, we try to use the original proposition to guide the case study analysis. A good test to decide what data you might cite, and if you had only 5 minutes to defend a proposition in your case. Developing a case study description. The description will help the investigator to focus in on areas of importance. Dominant modes of analysis. Pattern matching. Comparing an empirically based pattern with a predicted one. Dependent variables. Each case can have multiple variables or predicted outcomes. After analyzing the data, if the outcomes are in line with the predictions, the investigator can draw conclusions. If data is not consistent with the predictions, then the initial proposition needs to be revisited. Looking at a second case can give more validity to these conclusions if they are also in line with what was discovered. They can be theoretical replications or literal replications. Pattern matching. Independent variables. If looking at several cases that have the same outcome, the investigator can try to understand why this outcome occurs. Develop a rival theoretical propositions. Each rival proposition must involve a pattern of independent variables. If one explanation is to be valid, the others cannot be. Simpler patterns requires precision of pattern matching. Explanation building. Analyze the case study data by building an explanation about the case. Explaining is done by outlining causal links. This is often done in narrative form. The case study evidence is examined, theoretical positions are revised, and the evidence is examined once again from a new perspective. The problems could be that the investigator can drift away from the original topic as the proposition is revised over and over again. In time series analysis, the essential logic underlying a time series design is a match between a trend of data points compared to a theoretically significant trend specified before the onset of the investigation versus B, some rival trend also specified earlier versus any trend based on some artifact or threat to internal validity. Examining case or cases for changes over time. This may be complex, tracking multiple changes over time. The analysis of chronological events is a frequent technique in case studies that may be considered a special form of time series analysis. It covers many different variables. The objective is to examine some relevant how and why questions about the relationship of events over time, not merely to observe the time trends alone. In 1984, Yin also mentions 3 lesser modes of analysis that must be used in conjunction with the other methods of data analysis. Analyze embedded units, making repeated observations, and doing a case survey, secondary analysis across cases. This is a survey of each case and results encoded quantitatively and then compared to other case results. This can determine what the existing literature says. Sampling methods in case studies. Cases can be chosen and studied because they are thought to be instrumentally useful in furthering understanding of a particular problem, issue, concept, etc. The logic in case studies involves theoretical sampling, in which the goal is to choose cases that are likely to replicate or extend the emergent theory, or to fill theoretical categories and provide examples for popular types. Yin outlines several different types of cases which would each require a different approach to sampling, such as critical case, rare or unique case, revelatory case, representative case, longitudinal case, or paradigmatic case. Critical cases are testing while formulating theories. If the theory is credible, then we would look at this case. We should see the theory proved. When looking for critical cases, it is a good idea to look for either the most likely or least likely causes. That is, the causes that are likely to either clearly confirm or irrefutably falsify propositions and hypotheses. Rare or unique case. This is a case that is intrinsically unusual and interesting. For example, an examination of a person who suffers from a rare disease. Revelatory case. This situation exists when an investigator has an opportunity to observe and analyze a phenomenon previously inaccessible to scientific investigation. For example, White's Street Corner Society, a study of an Italian slum in the United States. White lived with a family in the neighborhood and performed a descriptive case study of the culture. Representative case, or an exemplifying case. A case that exemplifies a certain phenomenon that one wishes to explore. For example, the authors of Middletown, a study of contemporary American culture, wanted to create a portrait of American small-town life between 1890 and 1925. Longitudinal case. Examines how things change over time. This allows the researcher to study the same single case at 2 or more time points in order to examine changes over time. Paradigmatic cases. These cases highlight more general characteristics of the societies in question. For example, Deep Play in a Balinese Cockfight by Gertz, European Prisons and the Panopticon by Michael Foucault. Cases could be several things, or comprised of several things: individuals, events, or an entity, organizations, or programs. It is distinctive in the first place by giving a great prominence to what is and what is not the case. The boundaries are kept in focus. What is happening and deemed important within those boundaries is considered vital and usually determines what the study is about, as contrasted with other kinds of studies where hypotheses or issues are previously targeted by the investigators. It is important to define the case in order to focus sampling on who is important to the initial proposition. In order to define the case, one must have to make the following decisions. If the case is a small group, one would need to define who is not in the group. If the case is based on a geographic area, one would need to make decisions about the public services that are not in that geographic area. If the case has specific time boundaries, which are needed to define the beginning and end of the case, and in order to compare the study to previous literature. Each study and unit of analysis either should be similar to those previously studied by others or should deviate in clear operationally defined ways. In this manner, the previous literature, therefore, also can become a guide for defining the case and unit of analysis. The most important criteria that set the boundaries for the study are importance or critically relevance and representativeness. Reporting in case studies. Reporting findings and conclusions depends on the method of research, which could be qualitative or quantitative. Most case studies are a mixed methods approach to research. Reporting case study research. Baxter and Jack in 2008 suggested that reporting case study findings is a difficult task for any researcher due to the complexity of the approach. The goal is to describe the study in such a comprehensive manner as to enable the reader to feel as if they have been an active participant in the research and can determine whether or not the study findings could be applied to their own situation. They suggested that there is no one way to present the findings, but they gave some suggestions. Tell a story, give a chronological report, address each issue or question, and compare and contrast findings to literature. Yin also suggests 6 approaches, which could be linear, comparative, chronological, theory building, suspense, or unsequenced. Multiple methods and sources are often made use of to achieve an in-depth understanding of cases through the triangulation of methods and sources to confirm emerging findings and to point to contradictions and tensions. Triangulation, as Stake suggests, in our search both for accuracy and alternative explanations, we need discipline. We need protocols which do not depend on the mere intuition and good intentions to get it right. Findings from social science studies are subtly influenced by the way that researchers approach their work. Triangulation asks how, a qualitative research protocol. Stake states, meaning of an observation is one thing, but additional observation gives us grounds for revising our interpretations. Aims of case study research. Stake also emphasizes that the foremost concern of case study research is to generate knowledge of the particular. Stake and Yin argue that case studies can be used for theoretical elaboration or analytic generalization. Case studies may be epistemologically in harmony with the reader's experience and thus to that person a natural basis for generalization. It is widely believed that case studies are useful in the study of human affairs because they are down to earth and attention holding. The role of case studies in human learning. What truly needs to be understood about case study research. Common to all experts, however, is that they operate on the basis of intimate knowledge and several thousand concrete cases in their areas of expertise. Context-dependent knowledge and experience are the very heart of expert activity. Such knowledge and expertise also lie at the center of the case study as a research and teaching method, or to put it more generally still, as a method of learning. It is only because of experience with cases that one can at all move from being a beginner to being an expert. If people were exclusively trained in context-independent knowledge and rules, that is, the kind of knowledge that forms the basis of textbooks and computers, they would remain at the beginner's level in the learning process. This is the limitation of analytical rationality. It is inadequate for the best results in the exercise of a profession as student, researcher, or practitioner. In a teaching situation, well-chosen case studies can help the student achieve competence, whereas context-independent facts and rules will bring the student just to the beginner's level. The role of case studies in human learning. What does this all mean? My interpretation is learners/researchers need to go beyond the basic level of thinking as per Bloom's taxonomy in order to become experts. Case studies allow for applying, synthesizing, and creating of information. Researchers can see and interpret the action of where the data came from and integrate the humanistic side of understanding. Misunderstandings of case study research. Because case study research is so heavily impacted by human learning and interpretation, there are misunderstandings out there about this form of research. There are 5 common misunderstandings about case study research. Number 1, general theoretical knowledge is more valuable than concrete practical knowledge. Number 2, one cannot generalize on the basis of an individual case, and therefore the case study cannot contribute to scientific development. Number 3, the case study is most useful for generating hypotheses, whereas other methods are more suitable for hypotheses testing and theory building. Number 4, the case study contains a bias toward verification, i.e., a tendency to confirm the researcher's preconceived notions. And number 5, it is difficult to summarize and develop general propositions and theories on the basis of specific cases. These 5 misunderstandings indicate that it is theory, reliability, and validity that are at issue. In other words, the very status of the case study as a scientific method. Some of the key contributors to case study research are Robert E. Stake, Robert K. Yin, Bent Flyberg, validity difficulties in case studies. There's little agreement on the criteria for validity in qualitative research. Bias is a big issue, particularly in single case studies. The researcher may become too involved in a case, advocate instead of research. There's greater focus on results than on method, which can lead to validity difficulties. This process must be documented thoroughly. Reliability is an issue because it is difficult to reproduce the same results with a different researcher. Ambiguity in interpreting results can lead to decrease in validity. There are ways to increase validity in case studies, however. You can study multiple cases instead of a single case in an effort to triangulate data. You can seek reviews of your work from other researchers. You can avoid making generalizations. You can use the criteria for validity in quantitative research to guide your research. Through objectivity, be clear on presuppositions and try to put them aside when analyzing data. Keep the relationship with participants in perspective. And intersubjectivity, have other researchers critique your work, describe methods fully, create and follow a clear process, link conclusions to data, and allow others to re-examine your data. Use the criteria for validity in quantitative research to guide your research. Construct validity. Ensure you use a longitudinal multi-case approach. Triangulate data. Extend time and triangulated data. Increase construct validity. Internal validity. Be clear and eliminate ambiguity and contradiction. Reliability. Keep accurate records of process, data collection, and analysis procedure to ensure others could recreate your study with minimal difficulty. Ethics in case studies. Doing ethical research is thus not as simple as following a set of rules. In fact, there are some rules that vary from one paradigm to another. It is important for you to know the ethical guidelines of your field and to make reasoned and thoughtful decisions about them. And when there is a question of ethics with competing answers, you should understand why there is an argument and make informed choices. Reflexivity is reflecting and learning from previous experiences and using these reflections to guide your research. According to Denson and Lincoln, structural deficiencies in epistemologies create a lack of clarity in the ethics of today's research. There are 4 overlapping items in the Code of Ethics that guides all research. Informed consent, or voluntary agreement based on complete and open information. Deception, or universal opposition. Privacy and confidentiality. And accuracy, intentionally invalid information. This is immoral. Gaining entry into the desired community of research can be difficult. Willis suggests the following. You need to understand the context. You need to act with humility. You need to provide a clear explanation of purpose. You need to be friendly and flexible, and show understanding and empathy for the participants. Multiple case research guards against bias. Personal values will guide initial research framework, but must be put aside in the analysis and interpretation of results. Matters of privacy and confidentiality can be subjective. What one considers private might not be considered private by the researcher. Be clear on boundaries and confidentiality. Case studies can be extensive and expensive. Balance time and money with ethics and purpose. Pay attention to positions of power, the researcher participant, as well as group member dynamics. Criticisms According to Gay, Mills, and Arisian, the following are advisable ethical guideposts when conducting qualitative research. Keep your personal ethical position and ethical perspectives aligned. Always seek informed consent. Examine the social principles that might play upon your ethical perspective. Consider confidentiality, and never deceive. Criticism connected with case studies. The case study has been one of the most criticized and most used forms of social science research. Wills contends that many post-positivist perspectives case studies would state the following. Whereas many critical and interpretive researchers state that case studies Meyer states that the lack of specific guidelines in case studies is both a strength and weakness. Designing research around research questions can be very effective, but can also create poorer research practices. She notes that case studies are criticized for lacking academic rigor, as well as have an unclear definition and purpose that is open to interpretation. Rutherford emphasizes that case studies are time-consuming. They create a vast amount of data, they cannot establish cause and effect relationships, and they don't apply to society in general. An example that we chose of this research method and the rationale is implementing Web 2.0 technologies in higher education, a collective case study. This paper from 2012 presents evaluation findings from a collective case of 6 Web 2.0 implementations in Australian higher education. The research was taken as part of a larger study that sought to understand how today's students use information and communication technologies to support their learning. This was conducted across 3 universities. The research included a range of disciplines, class sizes, and year levels. A common evaluation strategy was used in order to collect comparable data from which commonalities and differences could be identified. The research was guided by 2 key questions. How does use of Web 2.0 tools influence student engagement and learning outcomes, and what contextual factors affect the integration of Web 2.0 technologies? Methodologies. A collective case study design using qualitative methods was chosen as the best means to collect in-depth data about implementations of Web 2.0 in naturalistic settings. Key to the design also was that each case could be understood independently, but also that some comparisons could be across the cases. A combination of qualitative and quantitative data collection methods was used. A qualitative approach was chosen based on the premise that the ways in which students and staff think about technology-supported learning and teaching are likely to be context-specific, and, therefore, the development and implementation of technology-based tools to enhance learning must, in the first instance, be carried out in context. Only by acknowledging differences among learning and teaching cultures Only by acknowledging differences among learning and teaching cultures, this can improve teaching practice, and curriculum can be changed and strategies for improvement be shared. The following table outlines the specific Web 2.0 technologies that were chosen within the different cases and contexts of the study. Please take a minute to peruse it. In terms of data collection, researchers collected relevant documents, maintained field notes, including records of implementation project team discussions during the development phase, and completed summary templates to obtain consistent data across all projects. A common reporting template was developed, and a case report was written for each case to allow for summarization with minimal interpretation. Like all research, this study has limitations that must be acknowledged. One lies in the nature of the data collected, which emphasizes self-reports from students and staff as indicators of engagement and learning outcomes. It was beyond the scope of this study to undertake a detailed analysis of the work produced by students, which would also have provided insights into aspects of the learning outcomes achieved. Next is our example video for case study research. Please take a minute to click on the video and watch
Old Spice practically invented body wash for men. But as the category has grown, the competition has heated up. With business slowing, Old Spice body wash was in need of a boost. With women making more than half of all body wash purchases, we decided to target men and their ladies for the very first time. How could we get couples to have a conversation about body wash? How could we get women to stop buying lady-scented products for their guys and choose Old Spice instead?
Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me. Sadly, he isn't me. But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash and switched to Old Spice, he could smell like he's me. Look down. Back up. Where are you? You're on a boat with the man your man could smell. What's in your hand? Back at me. I have it. It's an oyster with 2 tickets to that thing you love. Look again. The tickets are now diamond. Anything is possible when your man smells like Old Spice and not a lady. I'm on a horse.
Launched online Super Bowl weekend and on television shortly thereafter, the man your man could smell like quickly became a phenomenon. Buzz was fueled with a media buy in targeted environments where couples would be watching together. In the first 3 months of 2010, the brand captured 75% of all conversations in the category, with over half of this buzz generated by women. Suddenly, everyone was talking about the man your man could smell like.
Hello, ladies. I'm Karan Butler. Look at your man. Now back at me.
Now back to your boy. Now back to me. Sadly, he's not as cute as me.
But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash,
Start use curry powder. He can smell just like me. Look down. Back up. Where are you? You're on a boat.
the boy and the man could smell like.
What's in your hands? Now back at me.
It's an oyster. Open up. It's 2 tickets to that thing you love.
Look again. The laptop is now a celestial sandwich here in the snack zone.
Anything is possible when your sausage tastes like a sausage that's spicy and not a lady.
I'm on a horse.
Old Spice? I tell you, I love that commercial so much, I'm about to buy me some Old Spice.
Every man in the world wants to smell like our next guest. There are very few commercials that are that special that people really pay attention to.
On the heels of this overwhelming success, an encore performance was a no-brainer. But Old Spice wanted something more engaging. How could the man your man could smell like have a conversation with his fans on a more intimate, personal level?
You tell me.
And so the Response campaign was born. In 2.5 days, a Wieden & Kennedy team of creatives, digital strategists, developers, and producers filmed 186 video responses to fans and celebrities, culled from questions on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and more. These real-time messages were then posted on YouTube, sparking a sensation that would become the fastest-growing and most popular interactive campaign in history.
On YouTube, 12755JDH commented, I love these commercials. And I love you. Monaco smile. And I've renamed my kingdom Elenopia. Presidential Ab Point. Please excuse me, I have another call. Oh, hello, dangerous prairie wolf. This voicemail is now diamonds.
On day one, the campaign received 5.9 million YouTube views, more than Obama's victory speech after 24 hours. On day two, Old Spice had 8 out of the top 11 most popular videos on the web. By day 3, the campaign eclipsed 20 million views. And 1 week post-launch, the work has been seen more than 40 million times. During this time, the brand's Twitter following increased 2,700%. Facebook fan interaction went up 800%. Traffic to OldSpice.com increased 300%, and Old Spice became the #1 all-time most viewed branded channel on YouTube. And in the 6 months since The Man Your Man Could Smell Like first appeared, the campaign has generated more than 1.4 billion impressions for the brand, and that's a lot. Without question, the campaign has had a dramatic impact on the bottom line. In the 6 months since launch, sales of Old Spice body wash has increased 27% from a year ago. In the last 3 months, sales are up 55%. And in the past month, sales are up 107%, cementing Old Spice as the #1 brand of body wash for men.
Okay, great. Just a few notes on the video. This video gave many examples of the data collection analysis techniques mentioned in our case study research. Archival records collected quantitative data regarding sales percentages and gender of buyers. Documentation, collected analysis of comments posted on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Interviews, asked audience to communicate with Old Spice Man, the Old Spice Man your man could smell like. The audience wrote in or posted video messages to the character, and the character responded. Direct observation, analysis of what is happening in real time with respect to how people are reacting to the ads based on their comments on internet sites. Participant observation, the Old Spice Man your man could smell like reacts and communicates with viewers as though he was part of their community. Asked how questions, how can they get women to buy Old Spice body wash for their husbands? How can they increase the amount of dialogue/communication about Old Spice on the internet, social media, websites? How questions are common research questions asked in case studies. Thank you for listening and following along with our Learning Task 3 project on case study research. Have a wonderful day or evening.